This day in sports history. This episode is brought to you by Sterling Soap. Go to STIRLING soap.com and check out their full line of bath soaps, shave soaps, beard balm, lotions, and cologne. It's May 9th, and on this day in 1970, a horrific crash at Darlington Raceway nearly cost Richard Petty his life, but it did result in one major safety update that is still used today. The NASCAR boys were racing at the track Too Tough to Tame in the Rebel 400. Petty had wrecked his main car during practice a few days before, and his backup was his short-track race car better suited for places like North Wilkesboro or Martinsville. So here he was, trying to drive this dump truck of a car around the Lady in Black as fast as he could. Well, around 166, Petty pushed his car a little bit too hard going into Turn 1, and he brushed the outside wall pretty hard. That impact threw the front end out of whack, and now it drove even worse. He was able to get it back up to race speed, with the only hope at this point to salvage as many points as he could and get the best finish he could by the time the checkered flag flew. But on lap 176, coming out of Turn 4, Petty cut a tire, likely a result of his impact with the wall 10 laps earlier, and his Plymouth hit the outside wall hard.
There's been a crash on the home stretch, a car upside down.
And that's
a
Richard
blue
Petty.
car, it is Richard Petty. That looks like Richard's helmet sticking out of the car, and he certainly appears to be unconscious. The pit crew running.
The impact to the outside wall knocked him out, but with his car not scrubbing off much speed, it headed across the track and hit the concrete wall protecting pit road at high speed and at a sharp angle. The car vaulted into the air, and once it came back down, it rolled several times down the front stretch, with his left arm flailing out of the window before the car finally came to rest on its roof. As the broadcast TV camera zoomed into the wreck, Petty could be seen unmoving with his head partially out of the car. A red rag that he carried in his mouth while he raced fell out of the window, causing some to wonder if that was blood gushing from a clearly unconscious Petty. The TV crew switched to a farther away angle, fearing that they were looking at a dead man. When his pit crew got to the car and saw his body half dangling out of the window, they thought the same thing. But as they unbuckled his safety harness and pulled him from the car, Petty grunted, letting folks know that he was still alive. In fact, despite the horrific impact with the outside and inside walls, he suffered only a dislocated shoulder. Now, Petty's mom had been watching the race on television, and of course she was horrified and extremely nervous about her son, but once she knew that he would be okay, she went to work. She grabbed some old race suits of her husband Lee and started cutting them up into strips, and she fashioned a window net for her son's race car so that he could keep his arms and head inside the car in case he decided to wreck it again. Now, a couple of things here. Window nets were not a new thing. After a fatal crash in 1964 took the life of Joe Weatherly, NASCAR took the step to say that drivers should use a window net, but they did not mandate it. After Petty's crash, NASCAR made window nets mandatory and also included that after a wreck, a driver should lower the window net to indicate that they were okay. Petty missed a couple of races, but he was back in his race car as soon as he was medically cleared. On this day in 1984, a marathon baseball game between the Chicago White Sox and the Milwaukee Brewers finally came to an end. In the bottom of the 25th inning, Harold Baines jacked a Chuck Porter pitch over the wall to give the White Sox the 7-6 win.
That's deep into center field. Manning going back. This could be out of here. Manning looks up. It's out of here. A home run for Harold Baines. The Sox win 7-6 in the longest game in American League history.
And it is still the longest game in terms of innings in American League history, but in terms of actual time, it is the longest game in Major League history, taking 8 hours, 6 minutes over a span of 2 days to complete. It featured a little bit of everything. Snow in the early innings, a coach's interference call which cost the Sox a run that would have ended it much earlier, and quite possibly the worst throw from third to first in the history of the game by Randy Reddy. The game was suspended after 17 innings, tied at 3, due to the league's 1 a.m. curfew, and it was restarted prior to this day's regularly scheduled game. On this day in 1991, One bird helped another bird, giving the Boston Celtics a boost and a little life. It was Game 2 of the Eastern Conference Finals between the Detroit Pistons and the Celtics at the Garden. On two separate occasions, a pigeon flew down from the rafters and landed on the court, pausing the action while it was shooed away. Larry Bird was on the tail end of his career at this point, and he was not having a typical Larry legend performance. When the pigeon made its appearances, the Garden crowd started chanting, "Larry! Larry!" The stoppage in play allowed Larry a chance to rest and recover, and he responded with his only three of the game a few minutes later. And the Celtics won 109-103 to even up the series. And in 2002, former Notre Dame football coach Dan Devine passed away. Devine coached at Arizona State and Missouri before going to the NFL to be the head coach and GM for the Green Bay Packers. He spent 4 seasons with the Packers before going back to college and coaching in South Bend. He led the Fighting Irish to the 1977 National Championship, and he was not happy with his portrayal in the movie Rudy, saying it was always his intention to give that kid a chance. And the whole players laying their jerseys on the desk scene, yeah, that never happened. Devine said if players had done that, they would have all been kicked off the team. When Devine passed away on this day in 2002, he was 77. And time now for today's That's Got Nothing to Do with Sports fun fact. It is a pretty well-known fact that Hollywood actors and actresses, change their names from time to time. Norma Jean Baker became Marilyn Monroe. Marion Robert Morrison had his name changed to John Wayne. But those were studio creations. Joan Crawford was born Lucille Fay LeSueur. Her stage name was selected in a Name That Star contest. Names were suggested with the winner given $1,000. Crawford apparently hated the name, thinking it invoked images of a crawfish. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.